Okay, everybody, good afternoon. We are back with more Pro Football Focus grading. We're going to take a look at what they put together for the Seattle Seahawks on defense. We did the offense earlier today. If you didn't see that video, definitely go watch it because it's part of the picture here. It's part of the story, and it's all part of this series that we're going to be doing again this year. Once again, me doing this series does not mean to imply I think Pro Football Focus is always right, nor do I think they're always wrong. I just think that they do a lot of good work and they try, and their view is worth looking at, even if they're not going to get everything right. Especially on defense. I feel like defense is an area that they are much more likely to struggle with than the offense. But this is still worth looking at, especially up front. And overall, I think there's more to like than dislike when looking at the defense yesterday, looking at the way it was graded, and looking at the way we evaluated it when it was playing. There's a pretty smooth mix here of players that were graded great, good, okay, bad, and really bad. It's a pretty understandable it's a pretty reasonable spread, but obviously only some of this stuff really matters. And the good news is, of the stuff that mattered, we did get to see some positives for sure. Like, for instance, Nick Emenwari. This is the one guy who played defensively last night that has a real chance of being a starter this year. In fact, I imagine that he is basically a starter. One way or the other, he's going to play a lot. And it was only 11 snaps, but he was evaluated positively. And by the way, they graded him below water level on, not water level, sea level with pass rushing, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because he almost buried Geno Smith, and they didn't even give him a quarterback pressure for that. I don't know why that wasn't a quarterback pressure. Again, it doesn't matter because it's not like he got a sack that he got deprived of, but I don't know where that comes from. But you can see that they thought he had played an overall good game. I'm not going to act like it means all that much when he only played 11 snaps, but that was the most meaningful thing out there tonight because that's a guy who's pretty much guaranteed to play a big role for the 2025 Seahawks. But stuff like Mike Morris, that matters too. He was our highest graded defender last night on 35 snaps, so it's a lot of the game. 2 tackles, both good tackles, both effective tackles, 2 pressures, including a quarterback hit. And beyond just that, he was playing everywhere. In fact, let me see if I can scroll over a little bit here. And you can actually see where he was aligning on the defensive line. There was some stuff in B gap, over tackle, and outside the tackle as well. So it was a good game for Mike Morris. He's fighting to make the roster. Yesterday definitely did him some real favors. I like it. Excuse me. Jared Ivey. This is interesting because watching that game initially, I thought Jared Ivey was kind of anonymous. I didn't really notice him that much, but they graded him very positively, 84.4. They graded him well in all categories, actually. They thought that he did a good job against the run. You can see they gave him 3 tackle stops. You can see that they thought that he was an effective pass rusher. He was an effective tackler. And again, this is a guy who might matter a little bit. It depends on whether or not we're looking to acquire another edge rusher to replace Nwosu, because obviously at this point, it's reasonable to assume that Nwosu is going to miss at least some time this year. Are we going to go get somebody, or is Jared Ivey going to be the guy? I don't know. But that is actually interesting. I'm going to have to look back at this game a little bit, I think, and zoom in on Ivey mentally because I didn't notice him that much. Also got good grades from Pritchett, which makes sense. He had the pick and he made another play on the ball. He tackled well. He tackled effectively. Maybe, not that it means much because it's the first preseason game, but probably the most he has stood out since getting drafted by the Seahawks. Connor O'Toole living in the backfield. 6 quarterback pressures for him in 41 snaps. 24 pass rushing snaps, by the way. So makes sense that he would be up there. And I can't imagine that really matters, but maybe he makes the practice squad. It matters to him. Might not matter to us as Seahawks fans in terms of seeing a good product on the field in real games, but maybe he makes the practice squad. Tyler Hall, can't imagine him making the team, but Jarek Reed fighting for his roster spot. Good game. He did miss 1 tackle, but overall, he played a good game, was active defensively. And I don't think there's room for him on the team, but he could have something to say about that. Maybe he pushes Okada. Maybe he pushes, well, I don't think he can push D'Anthony Bell realistically. I can't imagine him doing that. But Jarek Reed is going to make a little bit of a push here. And I don't know why it's not letting me scroll to the right here. Whatever, I don't really need to look at that stuff all that much. But those are the standouts, those 7 guys, I think, if there are standouts from this game defensively in terms of grades. They did like Tyreek Smith. They did like De'Aaron Jackson. The De'Aaron Jackson one could be nice because that linebacker depth has me nervous. Like, our linebacker depth is uncomfortable, to say the least. And they also actually thought Demarion Williams played well, which I didn't really see that much from him. And nothing over the top, mostly because he had 5 tackles. But they didn't grade him as poorly as I would have thought, given how much I thought he was giving up in coverage. So I don't know what to read into that, but it is worth noting. Excuse me. One thing that I think is worth thinking about, of the nose tackles that we got on the field last night, Bubba Thomas, J.R. Singleton, and Quinton Bohanna, none of them were graded well. And that surprises me a little bit because I thought Bohanna actually did all right. I thought Bohanna actually was doing some stuff. I'm surprised he got graded so poorly, 49.3. I don't know if I'm buying that. The others, maybe so, but Bohanna ranking this high surprises me. Also surprising me, we got Patrick O'Connell with an okay grade, a passable grade, 55.5. But Drake Thomas is way down here. I felt the opposite. I thought Drake Thomas was okay, and I thought that Pat O'Connell looked virtually unplayable. We got D'Anthony Bell here, really poorly graded. I don't agree with that at all. I know he missed 1 tackle. I don't think that is enough to say that he played poorly. This is a guy who had a hit on the quarterback, blitzing from the safety spot. I thought he clearly looked better than Ty Okada. I thought he looked better than Jarek Reed, the second. I don't know about that. I'm having a hard time with that one. And by the way, also graded poorly. I didn't mention this in the nose tackle thing I just said, but look at Brandon Pilley. Also graded very poorly. This is another guy who might make a play for a little bit of nose tackle reps because of how thin we are there. But Pro Football Focus didn't really like any of them that much. And in the case of Pilley, again, I got to say, I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I buy it. And again, sometimes Pro Football Focus gets things wrong. I'm not saying they're definitely wrong here, but I don't think that reflects reality very well. I don't. Josh Jobe was okay, by the way. Obviously, the interception saved his bacon, but I do think this highlights the fact that while Joby isn't a great player, or Jobe, excuse me, I think he gets too much hate, and he gets hate mostly because the players around him in the secondary are much better than him. But I think he's worthy of a roster spot. Cam Alexander, 6 snaps, gives up a long touchdown. I mean, what else are you going to say, right? 25.8, hard to be much worse than that. Okada was graded very poorly, which, again, I don't agree that D'Anthony Bell should be graded so low, but it doesn't surprise me that Okada's below him, I guess. So that's really about it in terms of the overall grades. Let's take a look at some of the more individual metrics, like run defense. Now, there's often not a lot to say about PFF in terms of run defense grading. I don't feel like you learn a ton. It is worth noting that the grading is pretty, it's a pretty smooth progression from the guys they thought were really good to the guys that they thought were really bad. There's a lot of stuff in the middle here, pretty standard. Jared Ivey at the top. Again, I'm going to have to go back and look at this. I'm going to have to try to evaluate this kind of on a second look because I didn't notice Jared Ivey that much, but it looks like his work against the run got a lot of credit here. 3 stops, 1.8 average depth of tackle. Mike Morris, of course, was up here, which doesn't surprise me. These are all small sample sizes, but Morris is someone that I really liked when we drafted. I really liked him the last couple years. We got nothing from him. I kind of left him for dead, but maybe not. Tyreek Smith, Demarion Williams, Emin Wari being up here is also really nice. He had a run stop. Only was out there for 4 run snaps as well, so it's not a big sample size. Only a couple of missed tackles, by the way, and actually, if you go back over here and you take a look at the missed tackles overall, you'll see we missed 4 tackles in this game. D'Anthony Bell had 1, Drake Thomas had 1, Jarek Reed had one, and Tyreek Smith had one. That's really good. That tells me that we're on the right track here. That tells me that things are clicking on a fundamental level. This team is tackling well. Even if these are not the guys who will start, I think it speaks to what the team is doing in camp and what the team is doing for preparation working well. Okay, it's kind of interesting, though. Like, Bubba Thomas, not well graded at all against the run, and yet he's got 2 run stops. He's got 100% tackle to a stop rate. That's by my count, pretty good, especially for a nose tackle. 4-yard average depth of tackle isn't great for a nose tackle, I guess, but like, look at Pat O'Connell. He's got 1 run stop the whole game, and it's 11 yards down the field, and he's graded higher. Like, these are the things that just, I'd like to know how they got there. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying PFF doesn't know what they're doing. What I would say is that I'd like to know how they come to that conclusion. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And sorry if you can hear the dogs. The show must go on, though. Pass rush grades, pretty predictable. It wasn't stellar. I think the team was doing a good job getting pressure early in the game, and then when they got to the 3rd, 4th, 5th stringers, it faded. O'Toole was clearly the... Wow. Yeah, it's my bad, guys. I got to train them better. Connor O'Toole with the 6 pressures, obviously dominating, leading the way, but the interesting thing here is that Tyreek Smith, who had 3, second most on the team, gets graded below sea level. Again, I'd be interested to know what leads them to that. He didn't have a very high win rate, I guess. 10.5% is not very good. The PRP is much lower. It's still interesting that a guy who was relatively effective getting to the quarterback, who was generating pressure, gets this kind of a grade from Pro Football Focus here. Morris, Tyler Hall got a cute quarterback hurry on a blitz, so that's always going to help you. Anthony Bell, same thing. You generate a quarterback hit as a safety. That's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting here. Not too much to say other than that. Pretty standard stuff here. Again, I really feel like that Emin Wari play where he hit Geno should have been a QB pressure, but whatever. And that's about it for the pass rush stuff, I think. Let's take a look at some of the coverage stuff and to get a feel of what the actual damage was, because I feel like this is something where you can get misled by seeing 1 or 2 ugly plays, and sometimes it's warranted. Like Cam Alexander, he comes on to play 6 snaps, gives up a 41-yard touchdown where he gets completely toasted in coverage. Like, there's nothing to say there except he was bad. There's nothing to say there except, well, that was a rough outing for him, and hopefully he can bounce back. But I want to look beyond that a little bit here. I want to look at, like, for instance, Pritchett. He gets a really high coverage grade. He did have the interception, but he also had a penalty, worth noting, and he also allowed 3 catches, 31 yards, but it was on 5 targets. So 5 targets, 31 yards, that's 6 yards per target, very little yak, only 1 first down, and he also had a pass breakup on top of his interception. This is why he had such a good game. It's not just the interception itself, but if you take a look at some of the things beyond that, this guy had a nice little game. Other things like look at Job. Job, for as much as we did beat up on him a little bit yesterday, and some people were critical of him, he did have the penalty, but he only allowed 1 catch, 17 yards on 3 targets, and no first downs, and the pick. Obviously, the pick was a cheap one, but only 1 yak yard. He's doing something right, people. He's not a great player, he never will be, but there's something going on here that I think people sleep on a little bit. Mostly, other than that, you just had a couple of completions given up here and there. Demarion Williams, this was somebody that people have been a little bit critical of, and I do think it's a little bit warranted. He got picked on, but it's not like he gave up that much, people. Like, we're talking about 7 targets, 26 yards, 1 first down, 1 pass breakup. I don't know. I can't hate on an outside corner, or, well, no, he's not an outside corner. He's a slot corner. Excuse me. 7 targets, 26 yards, 1 first down. You're definitely doing something right at that point. And Pat O'Connell, he gave up the 1 really big play over the middle, but other than that, actually, it was quiet, which surprises me a little bit. I thought it might have been a little bit worse than that. I still just don't think there's much there. D'Anthony Bell, 4 completions, but only 19 yards. Not really troubled by that overall. Ty Okada, didn't realize it was this bad. This is a big reason why he got graded so poorly. I don't think there's a ton else to say in this area, in this category. Like, I'm not seeing anything here that's overly alarming other than Cam Alexander, and Cam Alexander's not going to make the team. He never was. It was just kind of spread around. You had a little completion against Isis Waxter here. You had Key Drain Callaghan giving up a couple there. Just little things here and there. Okada and Alexander obviously stand out the most negatively, but I'm looking at some of the guys that are getting criticism this morning, like Job. I've heard some pretty bad criticisms of his play. I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is not bad. This is not bad for an outside corner. I don't have a problem with this. Real quick, special teams. Jalen Gaines obviously wins the game with the blocked field goal, so he gets the highest grade by far. Don't know if it'll be enough. Some of the things, by which I mean not enough to make the team, we'll see. But it's always interesting to see who stands out on special teams, because this is how a lot of these guys make the team. Like a guy like Halani, who I think could go one way or the other. He was one of our highest graded special teamers in this game. A guy like a Tyreek Smith, who might be competing with Jared Ivey for a roster spot. Maybe this helps. Jarek Reed. Big reason why we got him in the first place was to be a special teamer. The injuries have really kind of robbed him of the ability to be a meaningful contributor there. Maybe this will be the thing that saves him and gets him a roster spot over Okada, because you can see that Okada is even listed here. Yeah, he's down here, kind of in the middle of the, just kind of in the middle of, not even the middle actually. He's much closer to the bottom. Other than that, mostly just anonymous, which is what you would expect from special teams. I don't think our special teams last night were great. You can see that reflected in like I'm sorry, not Plumlee, although Plumlee graded very poorly. Mason Richmond allowing an extra point to get blocked. D'Anthony Bell, really rough, which that's kind of his calling card, so that's disappointing. But he has a whole career of being a good special teamer. I'm not going to worry about one preseason game anyway. And I think that's mostly about it. Jared Ivey isn't doing himself any favors. He needs to... I'd like to see him make a couple plays on special teams to help solidify his chances of being somebody we can trust. And I think that's it. All right. So let me know what you guys think. That is the Pro Football Focus look at things. Maybe another video later today, maybe not. But either way, football's back. And all we can do is enjoy it. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks.